good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and if you're watching this late at night, soon to be good night. So, I've had some delicious epiphanies, which, remember, those can be tower moments too. It's really wonderful when you have an epiphany that totally crumbles away at a false foundation that was there anyways. And so, I think this is a beautiful divine nugget. It's probably just going to be very short because I have another one I want to do after this, and it's simply about. That's so funny. The song on the radio now is Journey Faithfully, and that's going to be part of this message. So, I want to talk about briefly like karmics and dreamtime creatures, which is kind of a newer thing that came to me through some recent experiences in my collective tribe and stuff. And I'm sure that there are probably other vocabulary words to describe these creatures. But what I'm noticing is that a lot of times, especially those that we might refer to as karmics, um, they I don't know, I had this epiphany some months ago that some of them really, like, it feels like they are dreamtime creatures, as in they literally stepped out of our dreams and or nightmares as a part of a manifestation. Like, that, not that they're not real people, not that they're not that they're imaginary, so to speak, but they kind of are. Because if you think about how the rules of manifestation work and believe in magic and things like that, they are and they are not. It's a contradicting duality. But oftentimes, if you look at it, whether you're dealing with a karmic, so a karmic is a person, place, thing, or thought that comes in to help you learn an important karmic lesson, which most of the time has to do with self worth, right? And even some, I would say, even sometimes soulmates, but oftentimes we use it. Let's see if I can say the word colloquially, colloquially, I think that's how you say it, to refer to a person that is in our lives, a friend, a family member, a lover, a rebound, things like that, as a karmic. And what I've noticed through some interesting experiences is that a lot of times these karmics will come in when we're in a really low vibe place and dealing with fear based shadow work. And oftentimes they usually come in actually right when we're about ready to be done with it, like we're ready to face it, we're ready to be done with it. I know I've seen this happen with many friends, even in my DM situation. It was like right at that precipice where you're about ready to be done with a karmic cycle from the past, then someone will come in that is like an embodiment of everything all the fears and all of the circumstances and things that you feared would haunt you or come up if you took a step into the new vibration, the evolved spiral cycle. Then these beings will come in and bring up everything that you were afraid of. And it's kind of amusing after the fact. It's not during the fact, but after the fact, it's kind of amusing to look back and go, wow, like that person or that situation was everything that I feared. And when you start to understand manifestation, what you can recognize is that often happens when we release anything. That's part of why it's really important to be mindful of your vibration and your thoughts, because when you finally get to a place of releasing something, that's when it most often comes to you. The minute you don't need something anymore, it comes to you. And so it works that way also when it comes to our fears and our um, I mean, it's just fear, like fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of drama, fear of conflict, fear of being seen, like for your flaws and things like that. All that stuff comes up when we're no longer afraid of it. And the karmic element, especially in terms of being a manifested person of some kind, seems to me to be like, because we're such social creatures and we designed our experience this way, they come in like that because it's the hardest to ignore. Like if we had, it was just a dream. I mean, when you become more lighter in your vibration and more emotionally secure and you have better self-worth, you can take a dream. You're like, oh, I don't, a dream is all I need. A dream's all I need. Thanks, spirit. Thanks, that's all I need. I totally get it. And that can be, you can see the signs and syncs and recycles and everything that you want in the rest of your life, and you don't need that 3D confirmation, affirmation, validation. Yeah, I'm feeling all right over here, Unstoppable. Good to see you too. I hope you're feeling all right. In any case, the interesting thing of it is so that they'll come in, and after meeting a few that weren't a part of my, like, my personal story or my DM story, or some, like family member stories, I had this intuition, and it was playful. It's part of embracing the absurd, like, yes, I'm well aware that all of this sounds very fantastical, but go with me on it if it feels right for you. If it doesn't, don't worry about it, throw it away. Those that like it and enjoy this sort of magic in their lives will totally love it, and want to participate in it. In any case, if we, I had this intuition that many of these karmics are, like, literally from the Dreamtime. From, if you look at, I want to say the first time I read about it was when I was reading about Aboriginal shamanism from Australia. Though then I started to read about it in more and more places, especially when I had a brief stint in core shamanism, which, as an experience to put in your mouth like a toddler and explore it, yeah, sure, go for it. Though as a spiritual path, probably not a great thing, because there's a lot of misappropriation and fragility in it. But in terms of overall, it's an interesting experience to have, to really see the combination of the various different indigenous and shamanic and, like, old ancient pathways, and how they intersect, and how they. Mm. In any case, the dream time is, in many, it can be described in many different ways, but it's not quite our dreams. Like, I feel like we have our dreams, and when they are lucid or very, very vivid, then oftentimes that is work that we did do in the dream time. But in my experience, most of the time we're not fully conscious of what we do in the actual dream time. And I think it's becoming more, I think when we say the 5D, that is kind of becoming the modern description of Dreamtime. It's more the ethereal space where our souls do various work and things like that, but it's not quite our souls, because our souls are part of the non-physical universe, and to have an individual soul as a part of that is still a layer down from that, and is part of why we created the ego experience, so we can feel separate from the rest of the universe and feel like we are doing something as an individual, because that's what we really wanted when we were in spirit. That's my belief of it. In any case, if you imagine that we have that space, that 5D, the dream time, and especially as we get better at manifesting and we become lighter in our vibrations, so the manifestations come through and we're releasing things. And some of the first work that most people do is release their fears, and then bam, they get someone that comes in, so they have mother wound stuff, and then, like, they finally get to that point of releasing it, like they let go of needing the apologies, they let go of the resentment, they let go of all of that stuff, and then bam, their mother comes in and does all the things that they didn't want to deal with anymore, or things like that. Or say that a person had a lot of negative attachments, unhealthy attachments to exes. Like, they just held on to all of them, and, like, every person they had any sort of, like, loving interaction with became a part of that, like, string of people to hold on to, and it became a problem. Like, they held on codependently to the point that all of these people were constantly pulling on them, and then because they never released anybody, there was never any room for them to be in it. And they finally get to that point, whether maybe they meet with a soulmate or their twin flame or something, and it gets challenged, and it gets challenged in a way that really speaks to them and triggers them, and they decide they're going to change that. The minute that they're like, okay, I'm really going to release this, I see it, I see all the reasons to do it, I'm going to release the resentment, I'm going to give myself closure, I'm going to do all this stuff, and then bam, all their exes start popping back, and all the people that they'd been holding on to, even if they'd been doing any sort of work to, like, set boundaries and separate from that, they come in anyways, and they come in at full force like vultures because that stuff, that energy's all been released. But the, like, then for me, what that's most typically what I see described as a karmic, not an ex per se, but a person that is coming in, and spirit will send them back in to really test us to see, did we really learn the lesson, and do we really want what we're asking for, do we really want the freedom from that stuff. And also, it's just simply, I feel like it's, oh, what is it? I'm thinking of Sword in the Stone, where, like, Merlin is teaching Wart, and it's like everything has an equal but opposite reaction, right? So you do the positive thing of releasing the parental wounds, the childhood wounds. You do the opposite of holding on to people, places, and things that no longer serve you or are good for you, and then bam, they come back in. And it's like, in that moment, there's no wrong or. It's so funny. I could see a crow over here, and it's got like this giant worm hanging out of its mouth. Anyways, I don't know how that's relevant to this nugget, but it's going to be relevant, and there may be just a little bit of delicious absurdity in any case. So when that happens, then the people that we learned those lessons from, like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't let this person use me as a space to hide their affairs. Maybe I shouldn't allow this person to use me for my money. Maybe I shouldn't allow myself to keep giving to people who don't give back to me, who don't reciprocate. Maybe I should focus on myself and my self-worth and things like that. The very people that you interacted with then, like, they make sure that you really have learned that lesson, that you really learned it, and not learned it in a I'll never talk to anybody like that, or I'll never get burned again. Not in that way, in a way of like you really genuinely, well, no, excuse me, let me backtrack. I think that's often the first thing we do, is we go to a place of being angry and resentful because it creates a barrier, a block, so that we can separate ourselves from them. And that's typically, hello Ruth, that's typically when karmics will come in, is actually when we're in a crusty place about it, and we're what's the word for it, spiky, we're spiky about it. And it's so funny. The song Stevie Wonder, I Just Called to Say I Love You, came on. I know that's from my DM. Maybe it's from yours too, or your DF. In any case, when we're still crusty about it, that's often when they come in. Because later you get to a point to where you've had enough cycles with that you get to a point of recognizing that you're calling them back in by being crusty about them. It's really still a part of the runner chaser dynamic with anyone, because that's not just twin flame stuff, but they come back in to test you because you're still kind of in this place of like, you're not really releasing it if you're angry about it. You're not really releasing it if you're resentful about it. You're not really releasing it if you're still scared that it'll happen. If you're still scared that pain will come and you're scared of pain and things like that, then they come in to help you work through that. And eventually you get to a point where you release them with faith in themselves and you and whatever the lesson was, or if you feel like there is a reunion reconnection with them later, then that sort of thing, like you release them faithfully and you feel great, you feel gratitude for yourself, for them, for all the lessons. You see the layers of generations that created the person that they were in that moment, and you can tell usually whether or not that they're ever going to line up on the timeline that you're headed towards, and that's great or not. Oh, thank you, Ruth. um but I it's so hard to articulate it because it's such an abstract thing at this moment, though I know that doing nuggets like this help everybody kind of come together and decide what to describe it as. So, and I swear this does have a point when I get towards it. I've noticed that many of these karmic energies that come back in the minute that we release those old, the minute that we're ready to release it. I won't say we've actually released it, but when we get to that space of like, I'm so done with this old version of me and this old cycle, then they come in. And they're often from, it feels like they're from the dream time. Like my experience of them, especially when it is others, like when it's not my own specific karmic, which I think is relevant. I noticed they don't have the same energy signature as like a typical person, place, or thing that is meant to stay, and that is meant to be a continued part of the reality that we live in or that we exist in. And it really feels like, I mean, I had some visions on a couple of last ones that I saw come in for the collective, that they're from the dream time. They're temporary. It's not that their lives are insignificant or they're not people or anything like that, but as far as their relationship to us and us to them, they are from the dream time and in our fear space and things that we're working on, and we are likewise that for them. And what I recognize too is that one of the best things that you can do when you have, this is the point of this nugget, one of the best things you can do when you find that you have a karmic or a dreamtime creature, either in your presence or in the presence of somebody that you really care about, one of the best things that you can do is learn to get to a space where you are appreciative of them and you feel genuine gratitude for them because they're coming in to help you and your loved ones learn important karmic lessons that will help them become lighter beings and have funner and more interesting interactions with you and everybody else. Like there's genuine reason to be grateful for them. Or if it's somebody that hurt you in the past, like be grateful because they helped you become the person that you are and the person you're becoming. They helped you get to a space where you are a lighter being because of what was done to you, you know? And then the next trick is releasing them from your story. And you can look at all sorts of works of many, many gurus who, Eckhart Tolle, Abraham Hicks, Tony Robbins, all sorts of people that talk about the stories that we tell ourselves are so vital and important because that which you think about most often, most consistently, that's what you manifest. What you believe is true is true. And so if you have somebody in your vibration that you would like to release or that at least you recognize you need to release them, then start to do intentional disassociations and like go from using their name or like calling them the ex or the parent or this or that, the boss, things like that. Get even farther from that. You might get into a place of like referring to them as like house guest or um, the person before. Like you kind of got to look for the words that feel really ambiguous and out there. You could go for the visitor, right? And I definitely get away from things that make it seem like they had any. Well, not that I don't know. Things like house guest is like it kind of feels like it's keeping an attachment there. So you see how you can go from like if you use their name and you get to a space like the roommate or the ex or the house guest, then you're in that space of there's still a connection in there. So to go even more general, that's what Abraham Hicks talks about. Go even more general about it and like go to a space where you recognize, okay, it's like a dreamtime creature, and then oh, like okay, they were a visitor. And that's really, really general. They were a visitor. They came in for a while. They helped us learn some things. They helped us level up our self-worth game. They helped us get to the space where we can see and do and feel so many other things, and we appreciate them for the contrast. And when they were done, it was they they left. That's what a visitor is, right? I mean, it could be a visitor to work, could be a visitor to your house, could be a visitor to your family, things like that. Like go really, really general with it, and that can really help you just for the relationship between you and between you and spirit. Release karmics and dreamtime creatures and whatever language you want to use to refer to them as. It can help you release them so that you are lighter and free of those vibrations. And as an extension, when you choose to release beings like that from your vibration, so too do the people around you, the people closest to you, not necessarily in a physical proximity, but in a heart connection, in a soul tribe type connection. All right, I'm going to leave this video here. I'll come back on in a little bit because I have a couple more divine nuggets to share. But I'm loving it because the song on the radio as I'm saying goodbye is Dolly Parton with, I think, Kenny Loggins, Islands in the Stream. So hum that little tune to yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.